All right, folks. Good evening, Internet Surfs. This is the Veritasia Ministries Veritasian Embassy Report for let's see, what day of the week is that? Wednesday, yes, Wednesday, June 18th, 2014. Okay. I basically had a very productive work day, and I spent most of that day talking to one of my royals. Okay, I'm not going to reveal this person yet because they've asked me not to. But I've had a very productive discussion with one of my royals, and it's resulted in yet another playlist being developed, which is a very nice piece of productive work for the day. Now, some of you may be asking, why am I doing this if I'm not making any money? Well, I'm basically testing out several concepts at the same time for Veritasia. Okay, I want Veritasia to be more than a marketing company. I actually wanted to be, foundationally, I wanted to be a Christian ministry. Okay. Wanted to be a Christian ministry that crosses several lines. Okay. And what I mean by crossing several lines is that I believe that the call of Jesus Christ, when he made the 12 disciples and created the church, okay, the call of Jesus Christ was not just about, quote unquote, making other Christians. It was about ministering to people at the point of their need. Okay. So, basically the reason this ministry is also a marketing group, okay, is first of all, I want to follow in the tradition of people like, say, Danny Johnson, who is another on-fire Christian, is another marketing expert. Okay, and basically that is part of what I will call her ministry. Okay. She would probably agree with that. I haven't consulted with her, of course, and I'm not necessarily trying to plug her. I'm trying to give you, a perspective. Okay, I'm just trying to give you a perspective of where she is, what her heart is, what her function in the marketplace is, so on and so forth. Okay. I'm quoting her name because the first person to quote her name to me was, the first person from an external source to quote her name to me was David Wood. Okay. He's also a marketing expert. And, here's the thing. I know that my particular team leader within Empower Network, within the Mages Guild of Empower Network, his name is Lawrence Tam. Okay, he is a sold-out Christian. He's made this public. Okay, and the thing is, he's working by day with David Wood. He would be in a better position to know whether David Wood's foundation is explicitly Christian or not. I think his his, first spiritual foundation started out Mormon. And no, I'm not going to get into the argument about whether, quote unquote, whether Mormons are Christian. Okay. That one I'm going to leave to theological experts. And even though I am a formally ordained minister, I am not a theological expert. Okay. I became an ordained minister because they said I was tired of being a layman. Okay. I was tired of being a layman. I was tired of the kind of power politics that can happen when, for example, somebody is actively abusing their spiritual authority and trying to get me to buy into things that just ain't so. Okay. When I actually studied the scriptures for myself to find out that they ain't so. All right. That's one of the reasons I became an ordained minister. And frankly, I will be the first one to tell you that it doesn't necessarily have anything other than a self-directed theological education behind it. Okay, I'm not one of these people. I'm not a seminary. Okay, I've not been to seminary. If you believe that I invalidate the ordination and the call in my life, well, that's fine. You're welcome to believe that. You're taking the risk, limiting yourself by that belief. Okay, and frankly, you're raising a risk of personally offending me if you tell me so, because basically, here's what I was told by my bishop. Okay. And I call this man my bishop. He's an ordained minister. His ministry is basically running a mail order house to make it easy for other people who have the inclination. Okay. Whether they have the quote unquote the formal theological education or not, to pursue the call into the ministry. And his attitude is, okay, there are certain symbols of authority that I can give you, and people who recognize that you're sold out to Jesus Christ in the first place will be able to recognize that you're a minister. Never mind, do you have a 2-year degree, a 4-year degree, whatever. Okay, that is my bishop's attitude. That's my story too, and I'm sticking to it. Okay. One of the startling things. Well, I won't even get into that because again, I don't want to raise the argument with people I haven't even met yet. Okay. So yesterday's exchange was on Portrait of a Wizard, where I explained how I plan to get back into the Empower Network and let Empower Network help me build a foundation around Heritage Ministries. Okay. For those of you who are curious, okay, as far as what do you call this, company culture or branding or any sort of marketing tactic or whatever. Okay. I need to explain to you that Veritasia is more than a company. Okay. It's more than I don't want to say it's more than a ministry, because foundationally it is a ministry of, to, and about the Lord Jesus Christ, period. Okay. Now the question is immediately going to come up: do you need to be a Christian in order to work with me? No, you just need to put up with the fact that I stated right out in the open. Okay, I am a preacher of the gospel, whether I like it or not. Okay, as the blessed Saint Jack would say. Okay, Christianity is what it is and was what it was long before I got there, and whether I like it or not. Okay, and as long as you understand that is one of my opening biases, whether or not you happen to share that bias, we're going to get along just fine. Okay, my goal in life is to make it extremely difficult for anyone from any tradition making any argument whatsoever to quote unquote personally offend me or piss me off. Okay, because the secret, a lot of the secret to not giving offense anywhere. Okay, a lot of the secret to not giving offense is first to learn how not to take any. Okay, Joyce Meyer taught me that one. Okay, that's that's a foundational spiritual principle. Okay, and the thing is basically, okay, so this dear friend of mine and I are kicking around, what the Veritasia idea is, and I told this person, I said, well, first of all, Veritasia is my own imaginary country. Okay, I understand, before I develop the, quote unquote, the persona of King Caspian II. Okay, I understand that one of the reasons I developed that whole image of King Caspian II was that, the darker side of the exchange, if you will, is that yes, I do, whether you consider it or not, I have a need to be king. Okay, and the thing is, if I'm going to pretend to be king of, of whatever it is, first of all, it better be magic, and secondly, I've got to keep it firmly in mind that that basically I am. Okay, so in game terms, yeah, I have now graduated from a government in exile to quote unquote a pretender to the throne. Okay. Now the thing is, I have to be able to convince you that there is a throne for that to make any sense. And in order to do that, I have to keep working on what I call building my army of nations. See, that's one of the rules of Veritasia as a game. Okay, is basically whatever symbols you're playing with, first you begin with a mentoring process, which begins with a certain amount of submission and obedience. Okay, basically part of checking your ego at the door. Part of checking your ego at the door is, if you're going to become one of my students, I don't want you to do that because, oh my God, you can make me $100,000 in 2 weeks or whatever. Okay, that's what most people do. Well, I don't want you to do that. Okay, and The objection has been raised by my friends at the Power Network that there is such a thing as, too much time spent on individual hand-holding. Okay, so on and so forth. Well, for what I am trying to build, God help me, for what I am trying to build, heaven defend me, I need to do a certain amount of individual hand-holding in the beginning just to make sure that the mentoring process that I'm using not only works for people, but it actually sticks. Okay? Certain people need to know what I mean by certain ideas before they can actually trust themselves, let alone me, enough to be able to run with them. Okay. So basically what I told my friend was Veritasia at its foundation is an imaginary country. And I told this person that okay, I'm losing track myself. Yeah, I told this person that they're already a member of the royal house. Okay, which basically amounted to, first of all, don't worry about a thing. Okay? First of all, don't worry about a thing. If I am taking you into my family, remember, this is a family of choice. This is not a family of biology. Okay? So there is a completely different power dynamic that comes from being able to surround yourself with the people you actually wish to surround yourself with. Okay? This is a whole family of choice. Okay? Now here is something interesting that I believe about the nature of authority that is in danger of getting, completely lost, whether it's based on a cyber-generated illusion or what have you, or just a general mass media-generated sort of illusion. Okay. One of the things that follows from the premise that, quote unquote, there are no absolutes. First of all, there are no absolutes is a false statement logically. I can show you this. There are no absolutes is a false statement logically because everybody who ever builds that particular statement as a premise is starting from the assumption that the statement actually finishes this way. There are no absolutes except for the fact that there are no absolutes. Okay, let's tell the truth here. Let's tell the truth. Now the thing is, one of the things that I'm going to be accused of as a sold-out evangelical Christian is that I tend to think in these absolutist black and white terms. Okay, and basically just from say the primary theological premise. Okay. Premise A, if you are not an explicit Christian, an explicit declared Christian by the time you die, then you are going to spend eternity in hell. That is the way most people interpret theology. Okay. I'm not claiming to be a theological expert. I could be wrong, but the people who get caught up in what I am calling, and this is my own concept. The people who get caught up in what I'm calling the apocalypse fever, which just as there is a misapplication of science, there is such a thing as a misapplication of prophecy. Put it that way, right? And I'm not talking about the whole let's be literal about this versus let's be figurative about this. I'm not talking about the whole, evangelical, fundamentalist, hard line versus soft line. Well, I'm not really sure that I believe that sort of a debate. I'm not talking about, in order to be a Christian, you must be on the right wing, or in order to be, you must be on the left wing politically. No, I'm not talking about any of that junk. Okay, what I'm saying is that just as there is a potential for misapplying science, there is a potential for misapplying prophecy. Okay, the first person to actively teach me that, okay, the first person to actively teach me that was a fantasy author by the name of Terry Goodkind, okay, who wrote this 10, 11, maybe 12 book series now called The Sword of Truth, or he's basically divided the cycle in at least two different ways, and even written a book where he causes, quote unquote, our world to intersect with the world of his main character. Okay. But, basically he makes the point that one of the reasons that prophecy is so difficult, prophecy is so dangerous, is because prophecy is intentional about speaking in riddles, for one. Okay. And the thing is, you can find yourself fulfilling prophecy or ignoring prophecy to your peril, just by a failure to work through the riddle or work through the problem. Okay. So, there's one particular main character in this series who has a grave distaste for prophecy, and basically, the irony is that he is effectively a master magician and has a profound distaste for magic as well. Okay. But the thing is, he also believes that magic has a function in the world. That's one of the things I admire about the artistic tension that's maintained across this okay, another thing I love is Robert Jordan's Wheel of Time. Okay. Now, the problem is Robert Jordan's Wheel of Time, unless you are prepared to put it on the same level as Tolkien's Lord of the Rings, is going to offend a lot of people, especially a lot of Christians. Okay, because a lot of the foundational understanding of what magic is, okay, appears to come out of quote unquote, pagan or Wiccan tradition. And what's interesting is Robert Jordan had a particular power group in this Wheel of Time series that, uh, that is very, very closely analogous to, um, to Christianity when you study the symbology act. Okay, but the thing is, he specifically said, okay, since the United States is a melting pot of religion, various religious traditions, using all of those to draw my symbols from. He's on record as having said this. And on top of that, if you really want to criticize Robert Jordan's work, okay, he's already been divinely judged, folks, because he's dead. He's passed on now. So the thing is basically, whatever people did or did not get out of, his symbology. Okay, one of the interesting things was he said that it wasn't so long ago when mankind was bound up with the idea that, quote unquote, time was a wheel and things happened in endless cycle. Okay. And so the perception of linear time, so to speak, where one thing follows after another, and it doesn't necessarily circle back on itself, is a relatively recent cultural invention. Okay, that's kind of an interesting speculation that I'd like to run with. Okay. Anybody who knows me, I already like things like Star Trek, Batman, Spider-Man, Doctor Who. I don't care. All of science fiction fandom. I probably learned to love that before I learned to love my Lord. Okay. This is why I made a hobby out of finding explicitly Christian science fiction people and fantasists as I could possibly find. And the problem is the pickings are very slim. Okay. There are exceptions. There are exceptions like Frank Peretti. Frank Peretti, even our Wellhead, who's done a wonderful, explicitly Christian take on Arthurian legend. Okay. And I say that because I've actually had a chance to compare that with, say, Marion Zimmer Bradley's Avalon. And, I would consider that an explicitly pagan take and an explicitly feminist take. And it isn't necessarily, I'm not necessarily being complimentary when I say that. Okay. Marion Zimmer Bradley, I respect her as an author. I respect her achievements as an author, but stylistically, I haven't been able to get into her books. That's just something that I frankly have not been able to do. Anyway, back to this portrait of a royal. I told this person was they were already a member of the royal house, which basically means, okay, basically, I'm king, I'm the eldest magician. Yes, in one sense, you're studying magic because you're helping me work out my symbols for what I mean by magic when you take that in a different direction than, for example, anything biblically forbidden, which I call anything biblically forbidden sorcery or witchcraft. Okay, witchcraft is forbidden, and it's it's specifically forbidden because you're drawing on the powers of the shadow in order to propagate the worship power itself. Okay. And the thing is yes, I believe there are such things as black magic versus white magic. Okay. I don't necessarily believe, with all respects and apologies to my Wiccan friends, I'm not going to make the mistake of calling you Satan. Okay, I could attempt to draw the argument that if you're in Wicca, then you're in Satan. Okay, but a lot of practicing witches get offended by that. A lot of practicing witches get offended by that. So under the love your enemies doctrine, okay, I'm not supposed to give offense in that way. I'm supposed to be interested in speaking the truth in love, which means, okay, not necessarily the explicit truth of Jesus Christ, quote unquote, because not every moment is properly prepared by the Holy Spirit for that exchange to happen. Okay, since it is God Almighty, not us, since it is God Almighty, not us, who works both to will and to do of His good pleasure, okay, then one should be listening to the directives of the Holy Spirit. Okay. I'm using that language specifically so that I can draw back in my Christian compatriots. Okay, whether you're evangelicals, liberals, what have you. Okay, bottom line to me, if you are making the claim to serve Jesus Christ, then on the face of it, I'm going to accept you as a member of, that particular part of the family. Okay, that's all it takes. Now the thing is, I plan on teaching my congregation, okay, and my congregation is made up of customers. That's the thing. My congregation is made up of my customers. You need to understand that. Okay. But I'm planning on teaching my congregation some things that could prove very offensive to a lot of conventional theological experts. Fine. Don't invite me to speak at your church if that's the case. Okay. Do not invite me to speak at your church if that's the case. I've got my pulpit here because here I am on the internet. Okay, which means I'm potentially going worldwide for literally anyone who will listen to me. Okay, we're not even into will they listen to the call of Jesus Christ yet. Okay, I haven't laid that kind of a theological foundation. You know what I discovered as a Christian, and this is one of the things that came out in the very private conference, this very private dialogue with this royal individual. Okay. what I discovered was if I was going to function as a minister and stay sane, okay, I was going to have to stay, so far out of politics, quote unquote, that I was prepared to minister to anybody without regard to their opening position, i.e., whether they are a Christian or not. Okay. There are people that I'm going to have the opportunity to witness and to make testimony to personally. Okay. And there are people that I'm going to have the opportunity to witness and make testimony to through these. Okay. Because basically that's what it is. All right. I'm not even bothering to separate the presentation at this point. Am I trying to sell you anything? No, not in the explicit sense that I'm quote unquote trying to make money. Okay, I already have my plan in place for making money. Okay, one of the reasons this personage does not quite trust yet in everything I have to offer is because there's some fear of will I be able to solve money piece. Okay. And I told this person, I said, just give it time. Okay. I said, you're a member of the Royal House. Don't worry about a thing. Okay. I got your back from here. Okay. You're a member of my chosen family. I've got your back from here. Okay. So anyway, yeah, that's one of the advantages to being a royal. Okay. Now there are a couple of different requirements that I have for actually becoming a royal. One is that you need to buy all in. Okay, and here I'm speaking not to my Christian friends, not to my non-Christian friends, but to my customers, to the people who are going to become part of my congregation. Okay. First requirement for being a royal is you got to buy all in with it. Okay. I'm not saying you need to study magic. I'm not saying you need to buy all in with the Empower Network. Notice. Okay. And right now I only have one cash offer on the table. That's the reasons I'm not making money. Okay. I'm about ready to put my second cash offer on the table in order to put my third cash offer on the table. And by the time I have my third cash offer on the table, then basically that's when it will become clear as to, basically the entire role of the Empower Network, or as I've been referring to them, the mages of cash. Okay. I chose them as part of the mission for my ministry because without reference to any, theological discussions at all, what I know about these people is that because they know their business, they can literally be trusted with other people's money. Okay, and I want people like that surrounding me as I go forward into the ministry and build the project I eventually want to build. The project I'm calling Veritasia Ministries, or if you like, Veritasia game system. See, eventually I'm going to need to be CEO of my company just in order to take the right direction for what I really wanted to do in the first place. Okay? And what I want to do is I want to incubate Christian artists. Well, in order to do that, okay, it not only takes money, it takes a it takes a more complex understanding of what art really is. Okay. And as my brother put it, with the nice thing about any good art is that it makes you, whether you're doing this consciously with intentionality or not, it makes you ask the questions about what it means to be human. Okay, all good art does that. All good art does that. Music does that. Films do that. You know, comic books do that. Any good art does that, including the art forms that have been developed. See, one of the things I want to do is I want to, for example, put a. Okay, let me back up. Let me back up. Before you get involved with the whole, the mark of the beast is a microchip, and the cashless society that we are, that are definitely heading toward with the death of paper money and leading to a totalitarian one world state, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so conventional theology, and this is an example of what I call the apocalypse fever. Okay, conventional theology says that sometime between now and, let's just round it generationally and say sometime between now and the year 2050. Okay, my watch will basically be over by the year 2050. All right. The makers of one of my favorite games, Civilization, knew that. Okay, they only give you until the year 2050 to build your civilization. Okay, so one of the attractions of the game is you literally have this godlike power to it's a simulation in which you're given the capacity to have an impact on all 6,000 years of human history. I don't know whether they're using 6,000, 12,000 years, whatever. Anyway, okay. My watch will be over by the year 2050. Okay. This gets us into the purpose of what I call the Veritasia National Anthem. Okay, the Veritasia National Anthem is a very old song from the 1960s, right around the time I was born. Okay. It's called I remember the exact title that Mr. Ziegler, Mr. Evans put on it, but it's usually known by the title In the Year 25. Okay. And what I basically decided to do was, here's what I mean by the apocalypse fever. Sometime between now and the year 2050, just to okay, if we're assuming my life, my life here on this earth is going to end by the year 2050, then sometime between in the year 2050, okay, most, quote unquote, what I'm calling conventional evangelical Christians, allow themselves to get caught up in what I call the apocalypse fever, which is to, basically be expecting the imminent physical return of the Lord Jesus Christ, whether you believe that, the entire golden city of the New Jerusalem literally descend out of the heavens along with them, okay, or whatever. Some scenario of the physical return of the Lord Jesus Christ is, quote unquote, the only thing that can save us. Okay, that is a theologically correct interpretation of the way most people look at Christian theology. Okay, my deviance, if you will, from conventional Christian theology is, first of all, what if the Blessed St. Jack was right about things like, here is the nightmare that can happen when you begin by taking God out of the equation in the pursuit of science. Okay. Or when you begin with an assumption that, for example, let's just start out with a misconception that was brilliantly pointed out by the Blessed St. Jack, where he basically said that a lot of people tend to think of magic and science as being conceptually polar opposites. Okay. Conceptually polar diametric opposites. And he was brilliant enough to see, the Blessed St. Jack's contribution to theology was that he was brilliant enough to see that that ain't necessarily so. Okay. But his main point in the abolition of man was, well, let's suppose that we come up with, the quote unquote, the perfect applied psychology. Okay. Let's suppose that we come up with, the powers of an omnipotent state. His thesis statement was that unless we begin to pursue science in a more regenerate manner, and remember, he said, I don't even know what I'm asking for when he said that. Okay. But let's suppose that, for example, there's a reason why the images from George Lucas and Gene Roddenberry and Ivan Reitman's Ghostbusters and all of these other intellectual properties, okay, have filled my brain. Have filled my brain over the course of my life. And yeah, they've got me thinking about things that I love to think about. In some cases, being able to retreat into fantasy like that has literally kept my sanity alive, which is one of the objections that I have to Ayn Rand and her model of total rationality. Nobody stays in this valley if they're faking reality in any form whatsoever. And then she turns around and ends her book by raising money into the status of God. Okay. I submit as proof of my thesis, and remember, all due respect, but Ayn Rand has already been divinely judged. Okay. So whatever she had to say, for good or ill, all right, yes, it is still having an impact on the world, but the thing is, if her thesis was wrong, if her premise was wrong about the existence of God, okay, basically, Ayn Rand saw so many hucksters in religion proper, particularly the altruism of the Judeo-Christian tradition. Okay, she attacked things like the quote unquote the doctrine of original sin, and her argument was that how can there be original sin because first of all, the game was rigged in the first place. Secondly, what is identified as the original sin, quote unquote, is actually an after effect of the functioning of the rational mind. That was her thesis. Okay. This is why she believes that God is junk. Okay. This is why she believes that God is junk. So one of the things that I'm trying to do is I'm trying to reconcile some of the wonderful things that Ayn Rand had to say in her subtext about the real nature of evil versus creativity and individual responsibility. Okay, she believes in the free marketplace. And see, the interesting thing is that at a certain point, her arguments break down because, first of all, she's using fiction as a vehicle to make a thesis statement that people should not fictionalize. Okay, think about that. As a vehicle to make a statement that people should not fictionalize. Okay, and I understand what she meant by quote unquote the mystic of spirit. Okay, one of the problems with theology in her view was that the end game of theology, as she saw it, was to make sure that you secured rewards in the next world, mostly by not paying any attention in this one. Okay. Mostly by not paying any attention in this one. That's what and then she was really irritated that she also made the argument that quote unquote religion had abrogated to itself a whole set of abstractions that actually refer back to concrete experiential phenomena. Okay, but basically what the mystics of spirit, let alone the mystics of muscle, have done is they've made those terms the exclusive property of religion, so that basically you can't use them rationally as an a-religionist. Okay. You can't use them rationally as an a-religionist. Well, okay, but here's the thing. Okay, with all due respect to Ayn Rand, I've always had a problem with the fact that she was an atheist because that's against my opening biases. Again, okay, I believe that there is such a thing as God. Okay, I believe that all of the conventional theological terms are actually leading into something that has one implication after another for how we operate in this world. Okay, in this world. I'm not even talking about the next world. Okay, one of the problems. Well, okay, I'm getting off into a rabbit trail. I'm getting anywhere, but and what's interesting is that in terms of like rational symbology, my friend and I were able to come up with very interesting equivalents. And the argument goes something like this. I cannot afford to be quote unquote, a minister of the gospel of Jesus Christ until I earn the right to be heard. And I can't earn the right to be heard unless I am prepared to help solve people's problems without reference to whether they are a Christian or not. Boom. Okay? Without reference to whether they are a Christian or not. Okay? Because theologically, this is the ground I'm on. Okay? This is the ground I'm on. And non-Christians quote this one all the time. Okay? And they quote it all the time because they want to misapply it. Okay? Judge not, lest ye be judged. Okay? Let's suppose that Jesus was being utterly logical when he said that. Let's just suppose that he was being utterly logical and rational when he said that. Okay? Then before you even get into the theological definitions of what that means, which basically I'm going to leave theology to theological experts. If the premise is that Jesus was being perfectly rational when he said that, then what it says about the nature of the universe, because remember, we're talking about God just create one world. God didn't just create this lonely planet Terra on the insignificant edge of a potentially insignificant galaxy. There's a vast universe out there. Okay, one of the things that I find myself I find myself pissed off by planet-bound theology. Okay. There's a reason why I want to believe that the Narns and the Minbari and the Morlons and the Klingons and whoever else is out there. Okay. Yeah, because at a certain point I get caught up in the fantasy, and that's what helps to keep me sane. Get caught up in the fantasy. I don't really care that there are quote unquote no real Klingons or Carl Sagan made a very interesting theological argument in his novel Contact. He was trying to solve, I believe it's called Fermi's paradox, about where are they? Okay. And basically one of the points that he helped to bring out, even as presumably an atheistic scientist, was that there really doesn't have to be as much conflict between quote unquote science and religion in the universe as it really is. as people might think. Okay. Um, the main character of this novel, the gal who was played by Jodie Foster in the movie, basically she went through what I would consider a theological experience. Okay, I'm not going to go away any spoilers here, but she basically ended up with a theological conviction of an unprovable thing. Okay, and she was threatened with, well, unless you keep this one under wraps, we're going to engineer it so that people understand that you're insane. Okay, I don't want to. I may have given a minor spoiler right there, but it's definitely a book worth reading. And do I believe Carl Sagan was an atheist? Maybe, but not necessarily. That's what I mean by judging not. Okay, going back to Jesus being personal, perfectly rational when he said that. What if what he meant about the nature of the universe is don't judge anyone before you have all the facts about how they got to whatever opening position you're judging them from. Okay. And the point is that, theologically, this is a lot of the reason why we should leave judgment to God Almighty. Okay. Because he is the only one who knows everything. Okay. He's the only one who knows every single step I took to get here, let alone the steps I'll be taking in the future. Okay. So before you decide to criticize me in any public sense, in any public forum, or whatever, first of all, let's at least agree that we're going to get to some of my outrageous statements before you begin to criticize. Okay. Right now, no, you don't know anything about where my theological foundation is. But just as a proposition, this is where the science fiction fantasy connection comes in very nicely. Okay. Supposing that the actual apocalypse does not happen until sometime after 2050. Okay. Do I believe that we're in danger of, inducing a planet-wide human-made apocalypse, including the whole thing of what Lewis called an omnicontinent state, and so on and so forth? Do I believe that we're capable of bringing about the end of the planet? Yes, I do. Okay. Yes, I do. And the problem is that so little information is being distributed over the internet, and what I mean by information is information that is not necessarily spun by propaganda. Okay. Very little information is out there that is not essentially money motivated or trying to sell something. Okay. So, am I going to teach people more, more sales resistance. A lot of companies are throwing up their hands in horror at this. Like, I'm going to teach my people more sales resistance. Yes and no. Okay. The thing is, there's a reason why I have been called to become a marketing expert. Okay. Because here is one of my thesis statements, is that every company is effectively a government. Okay. Small, medium, big, I don't care. I'm not talking about big this industry or big that industry or what's wrong with industry XYZ. I'm not talking about any of that. I'm talking about the fact that effectively, if you understand it correctly, every company is a government. Okay, and the one of the founding principles of the territorial United States. And you will hear me use that term, territorial United States, um, over and over again. Okay, I don't think of it necessarily as quote unquote, simply the United States of America. What I am trying to bring forward is that the United States of America, having a particular legal and governmental structure, is what I call a territorial nation. Okay. And an interesting thing happened a few months ago. I started using the term nation in a completely different internet-bound sense that goes back to the sense of a tribe. And that tribe gets built one person at a time, one person after one person after one person after one person after one person, and the interests of the tribe get defined by that particular tribe. Okay, so if you have the marketing way to understand this, every fandom is potentially a tribe. Okay, so every tribe is potentially a nation. Okay, and what did Jesus say? Go now and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Okay. Well, before anybody's ready to change any religious position, it's not just the question of, quote unquote, the Christians versus the atheists, or the Christians versus the agnostics, or the Christians versus the Wiccans, or, God help us, the Satanists, or what have you. It's not any of that. Before any is willing to change their theological position, best beloved, we're going to need to deal with the fact that we need to earn the right to be heard. How do we do that? By solving people's problems. When you apply judge not to solving people's problems, you get a particular result, which is help to solve the person's problem that I, the Lord God, put in front of you at the moment I put them in front of you, and without reference to whether they are a Christian or even in agreement with you or not. Love your enemy. Okay? Now, that's a longish example of what I call spiritual equation. If you want to learn how to do spiritual equations, guess what? You're going to have to become a member of the ministry sooner or later. Okay. So, I am going to be ministering to people who are not Christians. By definition, I'm going to be ministering to people who are not Christians. Okay? I don't demand that they are a Christian when they join up with me. See, that's the mistake that most Christian ministries make. Is, help me to promote my sick and twisted, God help us, Americanized version of the gospel. Poke, 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 name it and claim it. Okay, but let's get past name it and claim it as quote unquote an error in theology. Let's get past that. Okay. What I'm saying is, what if the apocalypse fever, the notion that we're all going to be dead by 2050 anyway, is one of the theological errors of our time? Okay? And the thing is, if you take apart a national anthem, the Zavala song, in the year 2525, okay, what I have chosen to do, the way I've chosen to interpret that song is, not necessarily that Zagler and Evans were Christians, because again, I can't judge that. Okay, I don't know if they passed on now or whatever, but literally, it's up to the Lord Jesus Christ to decide whether they are Christians or not. So, I believe that if the Blessed Saint Jack was right, we're going to be judged on, basically the summation of all the decisions we made on Earth. Okay, so this whole thing of quote unquote rejecting Jesus, for whatever reason you reject Jesus. Okay, now follow me on this. Okay, if it is all true, okay, if every single bit of what I have been trained to understand as the Christian tradition is true, then there is actually a person somewhere in heaven that I'm going to meet in the next world who has the nail prints in his hands. Okay, who died for my salvation, which the whole point, the whole point when we say died for my salvation is solving the sin problem, solving the human tendency toward genuine evil. Okay, first of all, we can get we can get bogged down in the difference between what I call genuine evil and symbolic evil. Okay, here's the thing. Okay, symbolic evil. This gets into a concept I call the war of art. Okay, and Christians need to stop the war of art. Period. Christians need to stop the war of art. Okay, but I quoted to this, this individual royal person who's already a member of my royal house. That one of the things that pissed me off was I saw certain attacks being made on intellectual property, supposedly theological grounds. Okay, that basically the theological error that I found in this was very subtle. Okay, and it was made by, it was made in a situation where it caught up a couple of the major players. Let's put it that way. The major players in the evangelical community. But the problem was that, basically the bad publicity, the attacks on these particular pieces of intellectual property were being made based on a spirit of fear. How do I know that is theologically incorrect? Because it says, God has not given us a spirit of fear. God has not given us, the children of God, a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. So, we're going to find out. We're going to be surprised. And Blessed St. Jack was very explicit about this. We're going to be surprised about who shows up in heaven. Okay? It's my contention that basically, if there is a real God there, if there is a real person, Jesus Christ there, then effectively we're going to meet him in the next world, whether we like it or not. Okay, that's one of the basic foundational premises of Christianity. Whether I'm immediately translated to the point that that I don't sleep when the body sleeps, or whether I have to await the literal reconstitution of my body at quote unquote the last judgment. Okay. Or I suddenly wake up in heaven. Okay. Or, the bottom line is, yeah, all conventional theology is also a gamble. Okay. All conventional theology is also a gamble. I could be wrong, ladies and gentlemen. I could be wrong about the whole thing. Okay. Could be wrong about the whole thing. And, Uga, the god of the African cannibals, could be running the whole show, as Robert Heinlein put it. Okay. I choose not to believe that. There's a reason why I choose not to believe that. Okay. But, and the other thing, the absolutely hopeless thing, and this is actually mentioned right there in the Bible, so please don't dodge it. Please don't dodge it. Is basically the Apostle Paul himself said that if Jesus Christ was not raised from the dead, okay, if we die dead and that's it, that's the end of it, that's the end of everything, then we Christians are most to be pitied of all men. Okay? Because the only rational response to the premise of dying dead is eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we die. Okay. Paul knew that as well as anybody knew that. He staked his life in the other direction. That's what I'm doing. Staking my life in the other direction. Okay. Basically telling people, yeah, there are a lot of, screwed up misunderstandings of individual authority that leads to a loss of authority in the family, that leads to a loss of authority in the tribe, that leads to a loss of authority in the nation, that leads to the loss of authority in the world. Okay? And here it is. I was kicked out of one army. I was kicked out of the Salvation Army. Okay? That's on record already. I was kicked out of the Salvation Army. I want to do business with the Salvation Army. And I have a lot of friends who are still there. Okay? The guy who got me ordained into the ministry had a long, long history with them. Okay. And basically he eventually left for other reasons. I left because a rogue Salvation Army, refused to honor my intention to marry my wife, and literally the stress he was putting on me by misusing his authority is part of what put me into the hospital as certifiably insane. Bipolar, check the diagnosis. Okay, check the diagnosis is verifiable at Mayo Clinic Health System. Of course, if you're going to public, they won't release those records to you unless you have a damn good reason. But all I'm saying is, yeah, that's verifiable as fact. Is okay. So the reason I can't do business with the Salvation Army, okay, is that even though I've effectively, by the rules of my own game, by the rules of my own magic, I've already captured. Okay. I've already captured the Salvation Army. I just don't know what to do with it. Come here, Veritasia. Yes, I'm
broadcasting supper.
Yeah, I'm going to finish up real quick here. Okay, my team is calling to dinner. But anyway.
Bye.
Bye. One of these days, I'm going to put you on camera and you can testify for yourself how you like
Well,
that.
when my eyes are quite so red, please.
Okay. Okay. All right. You're the queen.
Allergies are bothering me today.
Mm-hmm. You're the queen, so if mommy ain't nobody happy, okay? That's one of the foundational rules of my household. Okay. Here's the thing. Okay. By the rules of my own magic, I've already captured the entire Salvation Army. Okay. One of the problems I intend to solve for them is this whole question of, people, for example, using Army property, Army functions, events to, to cross-promote other disciple-making programs, such as for Okay. Now, I'm saying this as a disciple of Shackley. I'm saying this as a disciple of Empower Network. I'm also saying that the house of God is not the place you want to transact that sort of business. Okay, you can no more do that ethically than you can transact financial business over a ham station. That's one of the rules of becoming a ham operator. KD0EAP, by the way. Okay. So, that's just to show the hams out there. I know what I'm talking about, right? But, in this particular sermon, no, I'm not trying to earn money, okay? And my marketing materials are going to be separated from my sermon at some particular date. But, okay, back to the requirements for becoming a royal. Basically, you have to financially buy all in with me, which would be really cheap right now if you could find me. Okay, it's going to get more expensive as time goes on. And there are reasons for that, and there's an unavoidable reality to that cycle that I can't, I cannot circumvent it. Okay, so if you're finding me now, if you're a subscriber to the channel now, and you're at all becoming interested, and I would say get in now. Okay. The other thing that is required to become a royal is that you literally 100% have to be known to your person. We have to have met face-to-face in meet space. Okay, in meet space as opposed to in cyberspace. Okay, where we're actually manipulating two physical bodies walking around. That's the definition of meet space. So anyway. Yeah, it's interesting because I don't have any, I don't have any particular security precautions around me. at this particular point. But as I get, more familiar with the character of the king, and as I get the army around me, yeah, I'm going to be using the entire army, including the security precautions, to protect myself, not just from public criticism, but from private craziness, all kinds of private craziness that can go on. Okay, so anyway, those are the requirements to become a royal. I have 2, maybe 3, maybe 4 royals in the household at this point. The royal household itself is actually in a process of change. There's one particular person who will hopefully be coming, more or less directly to live with us, and become part of our family that way. Okay. Am I going to introduce this person to my business? You betcha, damn straight I will. Okay. Oh, that's another one. All right. I reserve the right to swear when it's done in appropriate circumstances. Okay. If you're offended by the fact that I use the term damn straight, okay, then you're probably not the sort of person I want to be dealing with on a long-term basis. Because basically you have two things for me, and the idea behind being a Christian at all is this whole process of learning how not to take offense until and unless you actually encounter genuine evil that you can actively do something about. Okay. And those are very specific circumstances. Most people are kept asleep. Okay. Most Christians are kept asleep about what it takes to be all in for the cause. Okay. You're basically being encouraged to be, quote unquote, to be all in for uh, for your local church, your church at large, meaning the building with the particular 4 walls, or whatever, maybe to contribute money to the ministry. And the thing is, basically, there's a line between theology and marketing. Okay? There's a line between theology and marketing, and marketing sometimes gets in the way of theology. Okay. Theology, on the other hand, also gets in the way of practicality in a lot of different contexts. Okay. Theology this is the definition I arrived at for the difference between religion and spirituality. Okay. Anybody who studied tarot will notice that one of the primary symbols in the major arcana in tarot is the Pope or the Hierophant. Okay, what is meant by a Hierophant is a person who is practicing the false outward trappings of religion. Okay, I'm not even going to get into the biblical definition for this is true religion. Okay, but and basically I won't even go so far as to get into my major concepts of what I believe about religion in general, let alone Christianity in particular. Yeah, I better wrap this up. Okay, I'm smelling barbecued ribs. So no. No, I'm gonna get off here. Okay, so my queen calls. That's the end of the sermon for tonight. I'm just doing, the daily blog entry, which I'm committed to do, whether it makes any money or not. I just want to let you know, who I am, where I am, what I'm doing, in as transparent a way as I possibly can. Okay, good night, internet surfs. I love y'all. Bye.